Hello. Welcome to March for the Ages. I'm Madison Hunter from Booker T. Washington Magnet High School. Our guest today is Mr. Nelson Malden. So, Mr. Malden, I'm a senior, of course. What was it like being in high school back in your day? What was it like?
Well, the high school I finished from was in Pensacola, Florida. It was pretty well. We understood the rules of the game in terms of race. So it was a black high school in Booker T. Washington, and it was very comfortable. We had no real racial problem in Pensacola at the time in the high school. Yeah.
Florida?
In Pensacola, Florida,
Okay.
right?
So, when did you take your first few steps into the civil rights movement?
My first few steps really started in Pensacola, Florida, when I was in Cresses one day and I was tempted to drink out the white water fountain. My mother hit me upside the head. I guess that's for me to teach me how to survive within that system. But my first experience came in Montgomery in 1954 when I came in to work in the barber shop. So I got a chance to cut some of the historical people had at that time. So my first step was basically like anyone else, just going through the system, the bus rides, you know how to get on the bus and what seat to take and all this kind of good stuff. The bus, of course, was segregated. The black was in the rear and the white was in the front. And sometimes the bus driver would shift if he had a lot of whites get on the bus, he let them go back to the back. Sometimes he had a lot of blacks, let them come to the front.
You have to
Yeah,
stand up.
you had to stand up. But what happened, you had color water fountain, you had black water fountain. That was a clear cut. But on the bus driver had discretionary power. He could shift the white from a little further to the back, and sometimes he could shift the black a little further to the front. So ordinance had passed, if a black person actually give up that seat, there must be an available seat back for blacks, and if a white person, there must be an available seat front. And the day Mrs. Parks was arrested, there was two white women standing and one white man, but everybody was already in their proper racial seats. So the bus driver asked the two black men to get up and to get the two white women a seat, and they did. So that's Mrs. Parks, and so she refused and was arrested. So you know the rest of the story. Right.
Indeed.
You're right.
What was your most vivid memory of the civil rights movement?
My most vivid memory was the experience I had on the bus one day. The thing that really hurt me and shocked me the most was that I was on the bus and I was feeling pretty good that day, going to town to pay some bills. And I was a little bit close to the front, and Blake, which was the bus driver, then said, "Boy, get out of that seat, boy." And that was really hurt me, and I had to go back to the back. So that was one of my worst experiences I had with the movement, yes.
Okay. So I know you're a barber. You own your own barbershop.
Yes.
And what was it like being the friend and the barber of Dr. King?
Well, in 1954, I was young as a barber at this particular barber shop, and I had a chance to catch all of the new customers. And I also was a student at Alabama State College. And that particular morning, I never liked to cut another head after 20 minutes to the hour, because I had to walk to the campus. So about 9:30 that morning, I was standing in front of the barber shop. I saw this blue Pontiac drive up, and I looked. The man got out, and I looked at his head. I said, "Oh heck, I can knock him out about 15 minutes." So he got out, and he came in the shop. I asked him what was his name. He said, "Martin Luther King." I said, "Where you from?" He said, "Atlanta, Georgia." I said, "What are you doing in town?" He said, "I'm here to preach my trial sermon at Dexter." I said, "Oh, that's my church." He said, "Good to meet you." So after I finished cutting his hair, I gave him the mirror to say he liked his haircut. And he said, "Pretty good." So you tell a barber pretty good, that's kind of an insult. And so he came back 2 weeks later. I was busy and the other barber was vacant, but he waited on me. So I remember that sarcastic statement, "pretty good." So I said, "That must have been a pretty good haircut." He said, "You're all right." Another sarcastic statement. So after I cut his hair 7, 8 times, I noticed he never give me a tip. So he came in one day, I was feeling pretty good. I decided I used a little psychology. I said, "Reb," I said, "when you go finish preaching a sermon on Sunday and Sunday members tell you what a good sermon is, doesn't it make you feel good?" He said, "Yes." I said, "You go to a restaurant and you have a nice meal and the waitress give you good service and you give her a tip." I said, "Don't you think that makes her feel good?" He said, "Yes." He said, "Do you put Timothy on this in church?" I said, "Reb, I'm a student at Alabama State College. I cannot afford to put 10% of my honors in church." He said, "I'm the pastor at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, and I can't afford to tip you either."
Of course, Miss Parks, Dr. King, and others are well known around the world. Do you know any other unsung heroes, a part of the movement that you like to talk about with
My,
us?
my unsung hero was Mary Fairbanks. She was a lady taught at Alabama State. And in 1944, she befriended a white lady that lived in Cloverdale. And the white lady was also a member of the Women League of Voters. The Women League of Voters was a white organization trying to help underprivileged white people have a better voice in government. So she tried to get Mrs. Burks to join, but Mrs. Burks submitted the application, but she was turned down because of her race. And she went out and formed her own organization. She named the organization the Women's Political Council, but she structured it after the Women League of Voters. And the Women Political Council was also responsible for making the Montgomery Improvement Association. The Montgomery Improvement Association what made Reverend McCain. So she was about my most famous person. And of course, Ms. Joanne Roberts was my second, and Mr. Rufus Lewis was my third. Yes.
Okay. From a civil rights perspective, what has changed the most since the days when you were in school?
Oh, well, since the public accommodation was passed in 1964 with the Civil Rights Bill, of course, the Voting Rights Bill from 1965. I think those are the biggest changes, but basically public accommodation that you could go to restaurants and theaters and so forth. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. When you were young, did you imagine that you'd be a leader in Montgomery today?
Ooh, a leader. I didn't know I was a leader, but I just enjoyed working a business where I got a chance to cut some of the outstanding civil rights people, Martin Luther King, Vernon John, Dr. Lawrence Reddick, Dr. Lewis. Because most of the barbershop where we were located then, within a 10 blocks radius, all the civil rights people came out of that area.
What do you believe is a major issue in the community today that you didn't see when you were younger?
I think television is a big problem, especially with young girls and young boys, because it gives them a fantasy, with what life is about. They see Beyonce and they see this the dress code for young girls is really not appropriate in the boys. So I don't know what happened to the black family, but I think we're going to have to re-examine our interest and see what we could correct some of the problems that we experience now in the black community, because it seems getting a little bit out of hand.
Lack of values.
Like the values in the family got to, sex is a very powerful thing within the human family, but we're going to have to seek and most of our problems start with a sexual relation, then it escalate into other problems.
Indeed.
Yeah.
What do you believe we as the youth should do to continue the legacy of the movement?
I think we must understand where we are and how we could move forward, but education is going to be the key, because education is like a map. If you got a good map of the territory, you can navigate it. So the territory is constantly changing, but you must constantly update your map in order for you to understand where you are. And I believe that if you could do that and understand some of the forces, that's negative forces that seem to be a problem for us, like your dress codes for young females and boys, dress codes, and your discipline within the social order got to be maintained, because with the group, you got to have order and you got to have discipline. It's an individual to function in that group.
If you could describe the movement in one word, what would it be and why?
The movement in one word?
One word.
Oh boy, I guess one word would be President Obama. That's one word, that the movement that really put a man in the White House, which we never thought would ever happen in our lifetime, but
history.
It did, history. And of course, I thought we as a race of people, we thought once we got a black president that we could see some major changes within the black community, but so happened, I think the other forces worked against Obama not to make those changes came about. The biggest progress we made was the Civil Rights Bill and the Voting Rights Bill, and all that came under Lyndon Johnson.
Do you believe there will come a day when race is no longer an issue?
Well, I don't think race is the issue now. I think it's class, because you got the poor white people and black people put together. So I think it's not so much a race issue now, it is class, because black people can move their base in their neighborhood they can afford. Yeah. They said they had some neighborhoods over in Atlanta that they don't even want any white people to live in. But I think race can be a factor. And I think one of the problems that Reverend King had was one of the debates in the barbershop, when Court Selma told him that you should not go against Lyndon Johnson foreign policy, because we got too many problems to be solved here at home. He said Lyndon Johnson is losing the war in Vietnam, and he's been very helpful to the black people. So I don't know why you as a person is going against his policy. So Reverend King told the courts that, you know what, my interest is more in human life instead of American foreign policy. And of course, Lewis told him of course, Selma told him that, you know what, Rev? He said the black people that put you in the history books know more about Einstein's theory of relativity than they know about what's going on between North and South Vietnam. Reverend King said, you know, 80% of the infantry that's fighting in Vietnam are black people and poor white boys. So my interest in life and not in policy.
Thank you for your time, everyone. Please have a great day.